In the summer of 1997, Apple had 90 days left to live. The company that today is worth $3 trillion was bleeding $1 billion a year. Their stock had collapsed 82%. 3 CEOs had failed to save them. Inside Apple's headquarters, employees stopped showing up. The cafeteria was empty. Wired magazine put Apple on its cover with one word: pray. Then, in a small office on the second floor, a man nobody wanted to see again picked up the phone. He had been fired from this company 12 years earlier. Now he was back, and he dialed the most dangerous number in Silicon Valley. He called the CEO of his greatest enemy. His name was Steve Jobs. And what happened next saved one of the most valuable companies in human history. The year is 1976. Apple is born in a garage in California. Steve Jobs is 21. Wozniak is 25. They have one mission: build a computer any human being can use. At a time when computers fill entire rooms and cost millions of dollars, by 1980, Apple is worth $1 billion, the youngest billion-dollar company in American history. In 1984, Apple releases the Macintosh, the first computer with a mouse, the first computer with a graphical interface, the first computer that doesn't require a manual. They announce it during the Super Bowl with a 60-second commercial directed by Ridley Scott. 46 million Americans watch it. It is still considered the greatest commercial ever made. Steve Jobs is 29 years old, on the cover of Time magazine, worth $2 billion. He owns the world. Then 1 year later, his own company destroys him. May 1985, Apple's board fires Steve Jobs. The man who founded the company is no longer allowed to work in it. Steve Jobs walks out, he goes home, he cries, he sells almost every share of Apple stock. He keeps exactly 1 share so he can attend the annual meeting and remember. He is 30 years old and totally broken. Over the next 12 years, Apple slowly dies. 3 CEOs, 3 disasters. By 1996, Apple has lost $8 billion in market value. Microsoft dominates 90% of the global market. Meanwhile, Steve Jobs builds 2 new companies: Next, an advanced computer firm, and Pixar, a small animation studio. In November 1995, Pixar releases Toy Story. It earns $370 million worldwide. Steve Jobs is suddenly a billionaire again. But December 1996, Apple is 6 months from death. Their cash reserves are evaporating. Suppliers are demanding payment upfront in cash. Wall Street has stopped covering them entirely. The board has one last desperate plan. Apple needs a new operating system. They cannot build it themselves. They evaluate 2 outside companies, BOS or Next. Next is owned by Steve Jobs. Apple's board makes a choice that changes everything. They pay $429 million to acquire Next. Steve Jobs returns to Apple not as CEO, just as a special advisor. For 6 months, he plays quiet, he watches, he listens. Then he stages the quietest coup in business history. He whispers to board members. He convinces them only one person can save Apple. In July 1997, the CEO is fired. Steve Jobs becomes interim CEO. He takes $1 a year as salary, as a symbol. But when he opens the financial books, the reality is far worse than the board admitted. Apple has exactly 90 days of operating cash left. They cannot make payroll past November. If Apple does not find $100 million in 3 months, the company dies forever. Steve Jobs has come back, and he has come back too late, unless he does something. Steve Jobs sits alone in his office, the phone in front of him. For 20 years, he has publicly humiliated one man more than any other. He has called Microsoft a company with no taste. He has accused Bill Gates of stealing everything Apple ever invented. Now he needs that same man to save him. The number for Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, Washington. Steve Jobs has refused to dial it for 2 decades. Tonight, he dials it. The phone rings inside the most powerful technology company on earth. Bill Gates is the richest man in the world. Microsoft owns 90% of the personal computer market. They have been at war with Apple for 20 years. Bill Gates picks up. Steve Jobs doesn't waste a single word. He says, "Apple is dying. I need your help." The conversation lasts 3 hours. Jobs proposes the most surprising deal in technology history. Microsoft will invest $150 million directly into Apple. Microsoft will commit to building Office for the Mac for 5 more years. Microsoft will make Internet Explorer the default browser on every Mac. In exchange, Apple will drop every patent lawsuit against Microsoft. Bill Gates says yes. A few weeks later, at the Macworld Expo in Boston, Steve Jobs walks on stage to announce the deal. Bill Gates appears on a giant screen behind him, live, smiling. The audience of 7,000 Apple loyalists begins to boo. They boo louder. They boo for almost a full minute. They cannot believe their hero just made a deal with the enemy, but the money saves Apple. The bankruptcy is averted. The lights stay on. Steve Jobs has bought himself time. Now he has to perform an actual miracle. August 1998, Apple releases the iMac, translucent shell, Bondi blue, strawberry pink, tangerine orange. Apple sells 1 million iMacs in 139 days. Apple is back. October 2001, Steve Jobs reveals the iPod, a music player the size of a deck of cards, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Within 5 years, Apple sells 100 million iPods. It changes the entire music industry forever. January 2007, Steve Jobs walks on stage wearing his black turtleneck. He holds up a small black rectangle, a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, a breakthrough internet device, 3 products in one, the iPhone. Within 10 years, Apple sells over 1 billion iPhones. The most profitable consumer product in history. Apple's stock, worth $3 in 1997, climbs above 200. In January 2022, Apple becomes the first company in human history worth $3 trillion. The same company that was 90 days from bankruptcy. The lesson of Apple is the most powerful in modern business history. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company, forced to watch it die for 12 years. Then he returned. He found the place 90 days from death, and he made the one phone call he had publicly sworn he would never make. Pride did not save Apple. Genius did not save Apple. One phone call saved Apple, because Steve Jobs finally understood that survival matters more than ego. The man who insulted Bill Gates for 20 years called him in private when he needed him. That single act of humility kept Apple alive long enough for the iMac, the iPod, and the iPhone to exist. When your back is against the wall, swallow your pride. Make the call. It might just save your empire. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Empire Decoded brings you the untold stories behind the greatest companies in history. Next week, another empire reveals its secret. See you then.